when I'm talking to a coach, if I ask them what their why is, and how many of you at one point when someone asked you what your why was, you said you just want to help people, and that's really all it was about for you? And for those people that raise your hand again if that why has changed a little bit. Everybody almost. So what I tell people is great, like, and this is what I would talk to your coaches about that have that same why. I would say that's great because you have to genuinely enjoy helping other people if you want to be successful with this business. But you don't have to have a business to help people. So why did you start a business? Does that make sense? I want them to be okay with having a why that's personal, about themselves, about their family, about their future. So one of the first things I do, if not the very first thing I do with my coaches, is help them develop a why. And sometimes I call it a why list because I want them to have a piece of paper with a list of things that Beachbody would help them achieve that they can't really do right now or can't afford for themselves or their family. So create a list and write down the things that Beachbody is going to help you get to and have it somewhere that you're going to see it every day. Because most of you guys that are on this call, you guys are thinking about your why all the time. It's fueling you daily. For a lot of other coaches, especially newer coaches, or coaches that are struggling, they're struggling because their why isn't it's not clear and they're not focused on it daily, if at all. Sometimes the only time they think about their why is when someone asks them what it is and they just say something that sounds kind of cool, but they don't really believe that they'd ever get there. So that's the first thing you want to do with yourself and with your coaches is help them dig a little bit deeper for their why. And it's okay. And it has to be something more than just helping others. Part of it has to be helping others, but it's got to be some more because helping others, that isn't going to get you to do the things you need to do on the days you don't feel like doing it. It's not going to make you do invites and follow-ups on the days you don't feel like it. It's not going to make you make time on the days you don't have time. But if you have a bigger why, something that is attached to maybe freedom, creating more freedom in your life or giving more opportunities to your family, that's going to have the motivation that's going to get you to do things on the days you don't feel like it and make time on the days you don't have time. So that's the very first thing I'm doing with my coaches. Every time, whether it's my coach or non-personally sponsored, anyone I'm talking to, that's the first thing I want to help them with is dig deeper on that why. The next thing, so now that you've got this very strong why and you've helped your coaches create this strong why that's going to fuel them every day, now we got to get them to believe that the things they're doing every day are actually going to get them there. So these aren't just like vital behaviors that you're just doing because someone told you. These are vital behaviors that are actually going to help you achieve that why. It's not some cool thing anymore. This is something you're actually going to achieve. It's only a matter of time. It's inevitable. So the way we kind of do that is by reverse engineering it and showing them how it's going to happen. So how do you create that type of income or freedom? It doesn't come from signing 1 million coaches or selling 1 million challenge packs. It honestly comes from just a handful of gold chips. Those coaches that have the characteristics we talked about. I was talking to one of my good friends, Lindsay Caterino, 2 weeks ago. She's been a Beachbody coach for about 3 years, over 3, maybe 4 years. She was a CPA just like me, so we kind of connected on that level and stayed in touch. And we kind of quit our CPA jobs at the same time to do Beachbody full time. And she was telling me the other week that she had her first $10,000 week. She made $10,000 in 1 week, a 5-figure income week, right? And then she told me that 98% of her income came from 2 gold chips. She had 2 people that were rock star coaches that were creating that income for her, 98% of that. 98%. And my income isn't much different than that, The personally sponsored coaches that are creating that, my income, I can count on one hand. But just like Lindsay and we had to talk to thousands and thousands of people and hear no thousands of times and get disappointed and discouraged over and over again and sign coaches that quit and fell off and didn't see the big picture and were inconsistent and inactive. But when we look back at everything we had to go through, all the no's, all the people we had to talk to, all the coaches that quit on us, it was obviously worth every single second. So now that we know that that's where the income comes from, those gold chips, where are we going to get those gold chips? Where are those coaches? How are we going to find coaches? that we're going to be able to eventually develop some of them into gold ships? Challenge groups, because they're going to love the products. Gold ships love the products. You guys said it yourself. They have to have that belief. They have to have that foundation, that belief in the products, Shakeology and the programs. So those coaches, they better be coming out of those challenge groups because they got to love the products. So then where are we getting our challenge group members? The daily vital behaviors. Being proof the products work, inviting, following up, using the scripts. That's where you're going to get those challenge group members. And it's not going to happen overnight. I mean, I'll tell you, all of my challenge pack customers, almost every single one of them are people that I connected with initially through social media 4, 5, 6 months ago. And they weren't ready for a challenge group or a challenge pack back then. So I put them in my free group and they watched. They watched some of my free people go into challenge groups and then come back to the free group and talk about all the amazing results and how they love Shakeology and the programs. And then now those people that weren't ready, now they're ready. So this isn't like you sign up as a new coach and everyone you invite is going to do this. This is something where people are going to use you as a guinea pig and they're going to want to watch you for a few months before they decide to join you. So, but that's where it starts, the vital behaviors. That's where you're going to get people to join the challenge groups. The people in your challenge groups are going to be the ones that make the best coaches. And then of those coaches, you're going to find 2 or 3 people that are going to develop into those gold ships. And those are the people that are going to create that type of income, that freedom that you guys are hoping for. If it's freedom, great. If it's not quite freedom because you have a job you love and it's to help pay off some school loans or just to have a cool car, then that's fine too. Something that's going to motivate you every day though. So that's what I want to do with my coaches. First, get the why, and then show them how the things they're doing every day are going to get them to that why. So now they know that the things they're doing every day, they're not just doing that just because someone told them to. It's actually going to get them there. Okay? So the first thing I want to do with my coaches, ask them their why. The second thing is, do you believe that gold ships, just 1 or 2 or 3 good gold ships are what's going to create that why? It's going to make that why a reality. Do you believe that? Like, honestly. And then once I get them to understand that and they believe that, then the next question is, do you believe it's inevitable that if you stay consistent with the daily vital behaviors that you will find and develop those 2 or 3 gold ships that are going to help you create that freedom to create your why, achieve your why? Do you believe that? Like, ask yourself that. Do you guys believe it's inevitable that if you stay consistent with the daily vital behaviors, that it's inevitable, 110% inevitable, you can feel it in your gut that you're going to find and develop those 2 or 3 gold ships that are eventually going to help you turn that why into a reality? Because the gold ships are what do that. Yes? Cool. And then what I do with my coaches that can't honestly answer yes to that, and I tell them, like, don't just tell me yes because that's what you want. You think that's what I want to hear. Because most coaches can't answer yes to that question yet. I know I didn't for the first few years. It took me a long time to be able to answer yes to that question. Do I believe that it's inevitable that I'm going to find and develop those gold ships that are going to create my why? I would have said, I hope so. But I didn't have that belief yet. So I had a lot of doubts that held me back from actually believing that it was going to be inevitable. So those are the things you want to talk to your coaches about. Ask them, tell them, this is like a judge-free zone. What are some of the doubts bouncing around in your head right now that make you feel like it's not 110% inevitable that you're going to eventually find and develop those gold ships that are going to turn that why into a reality? What are some of the doubts? And then once they verbalize them, they immediately lose a lot of power. And then you can kind of discuss those with them. Because I'm sure that you guys have gone through some of those doubts and gotten out on the other side. So what I want to do is actually just like talk a little bit about some of the most common doubts that I hear and how I help my coaches get past them. So what do you guys have? Like, this is totally a judge-free zone. Like, what are some of the things that are holding you back from being able to believe 110% that it's inevitable that you're going to find those 2 or 3 gold ships that are going to turn that why into a reality? Or what are some of the things that you hear from your coaches that are holding them back?
Well, I have, so you always say that it took you like a couple years in the business before you actually like showed up and started being consistent. So I feel like I'm kind of on that same path. But what was the breaking point for you at like that 2-year mark? We were like, all right, screw it. I'm done messing around and I am all in. Like, what changed for you?
Well, I think that any coach that's struggling with consistency is missing one of those two things. They either don't have a strong enough why, or they don't really believe the things they're doing every day are actually going to get them there. And that's why I wasn't all in, because I didn't believe those two things. I had a why. I thought it was cool, but I didn't really believe that it was ever going to happen. I made a lot of excuses. I saw other coaches that were doing it, were having success and achieving their why. But I made excuses like, well, they have more time, or they know more people, or they started before I did, all this stuff, right? What happened was I got dragged to a Beachbody Live event, and I met some of these coaches that were having success, and all my excuses were kind of thrown out the door, because the more of these successful coaches I met, the more I realized they weren't doing anything monumental or historic. Right? They were just following up every day, consistently, being proof the products work. They're getting people to commit to products. They're getting people that fell in love with the products, that wanted to help people themselves by signing them up as coaches. And it was a slow process, but they stuck with it long term. And eventually, inevitably, they found those 2 or 3 gold chips that created the type of income that created the freedom for them. And the more I saw coaches doing that, the more I started to think that they're just doing the same things over and over. And if I just did that, it would be inevitable. If I just stuck to that and stayed consistent, it would be inevitable that I would find a couple good coaches that would want to do that with me. And I knew that's what was going to create it. So one of the things that made the shift for me was surrounding myself with people that had that attitude. I was on this side of the whole thought process. I was like, okay, I have a why that I was working on. It wasn't like the strongest, most clear why, but it didn't really matter, because my attitude was, I hope this works. I see it working for others, and I hope it works for me. So that type of attitude wasn't going to make me be consistent. If I only kind of hoped it was going to work, I'm not going to force myself to do follow-ups and invites when I don't feel like it, when I'm exhausted after a long day of work, when I'm super busy with other things. So that attitude was what was holding me back. The more I hung out with coaches that had the attitude of, I'm going to be successful, it's inevitable, because I'm never going to stop sharing these amazing opportunities, these amazing products, and this amazing opportunity that I know in my gut, if I'm not ever going to quit doing that, it's inevitable I'm going to find and develop 2 or 3 gold chips that are going to help me create that freedom. The more I hung out with people that already had that attitude, the more I caught that attitude. It was like contagious. So for me, like, that's why I always push live events, and I always push these accountability groups we do every month that start every first Monday of the month, because you're getting in smaller groups with coaches that already have that mindset that you can catch. And this over here, this side is a lot more fun than over here. So for me, it was surrounding myself with people that already had that attitude. And then the other thing was, I look at this business as like an escalator that is going down, but you're trying to go up. You're trying to climb up an escalator that's on its way down, right? So I knew that in order for me to have success, I had to get to the top of that escalator. And then once you get to the top of that escalator, you're on flat ground and you can run full speed. But in the beginning, that first year, you're going against the traffic. That thing's coming down. So you're like going full speed, but you're not really, it doesn't seem like you're moving anywhere. So what happens is you start to get discouraged because the results don't come as fast as you want to in the first year. And you might get halfway up the escalator, and then all of a sudden, like, life gets in the way. For me, life got in the way. I made excuses. I said I didn't have time. It was my busy season with tax season, whatever happened. And I just gave up. I stopped being consistent. What happens when you stop moving on an escalator that's going down? What happens when you stop moving forward? It brings you all the way back to the bottom. All the way back to the bottom. And the few coaches I had that had joined me, that had got on the escalator with me, they stopped because they saw me stop, and they went all the way back to the bottom. And I did that. I got on that escalator and went back to the bottom probably like 3 or 4 times. And finally I hit the point where I was like, I've been on this stupid escalator for 3 or 4 effing years. I'm sick and tired of it. I'm seeing all these coaches create this success. They're not doing anything amazing. They're just staying consistent with those simple, vital behaviors, and they're doing it for a year, whether they feel like it or not. And they're making time whether they have time or not. So I'm getting back on this escalator this time, and I'm not getting off until I get to the top. And I got back on, and I stayed consistent for a full year. And what happened when I had that attitude of like, I'm getting on this escalator and I'm not getting off, people noticed that. It wasn't like, oh, this Pat kid's desperate for me to join him in this as a coach. It was like, wow, this kid's going to the top. If I go with him, I'll be successful. If I don't, he's going to go and be successful without me. He doesn't need me. So I'm either going to join him and go with him, or I'm going to get left at the bottom. It wasn't like I was desperate for anyone anymore. And they kind of noticed that. So that was what did it for me. Surrounding myself with people that had that attitude, and then being sick and tired of being stuck on that stupid escalator. And then this time I was like, I'm getting on this thing and I'm not getting off until I get to the top. And then once that happened, once I stayed consistent for a full year, I got to the top and my business exploded because I was on flat ground running full speed. I wasn't going against the traffic anymore. I actually read a great analogy today in the Rock Your Network Marketing Business, which was kind of similar to that. She said, your first year in the business, you're pushing a snowball up a hill. And the more you go, like the more people that join you, you get more responsibilities. More people you have more people that want your time that first year as you're getting better, and a few coaches want to join you. So that snowball is getting heavier to push up the hill. It's getting a little bit harder that first year towards the end of the year, which is when I was like, I got too much going on. I can't do it. And I quit. But this time I said, I'm going to keep pushing the snowball. I don't care how heavy it gets until I get to the top. For that full year, pushing that snowball to the top. And then what happens when you get to the top and you're consistent for that full year, all of a sudden that snowball just flies down the other side of the mountain and collects tons and tons of snow. And you're on a call like this, reading off recognition for like 20 minutes, you know? But for me, it was live events. That's what changed it all. And then just getting sick and tired of going backwards. Sick and tired of going backwards. I knew that I was making this business a lot harder than it was.
Okay, so I have one follow-up question for you. Thank you. That was really good. So
Yeah.
obviously you were working full-time. Like when I came in the business, you were still working, but you had to utilize some sort of time management. Like how, because, I'm a busy mom. I feel like if I'm all in with Beachbody, what I'm struggling with is I feel like I'm on to my kids and it just causes me to go the opposite direction. So how did you utilize like the power hour, scheduling business hours for yourself to propel yourself forward with like your home life and your personal life and working full time and your family and stuff like that?
For me, I knew I was going to have to make some short-term sacrifices for long-term results. And once I had like that unwavering belief that it was inevitable that I was going to be successful as long as I could just make myself make time and be consistent, then I had two choices. I knew I had some things in my life that I wanted to change. One, I wanted to get rid of my job. And I know a lot of you don't have jobs, but there's a lot of things that being able to create some income. Did you guys hear that? Hold on, let me see who this is. Echo? I think it's gone. So once it had to start with that belief that it was inevitable as long as I made the time and stayed on the escalator for long enough, it was inevitable that I was going to be successful. That had to happen first, right? You have to have that belief that if you did it, it's going to happen. And then once I had that belief, it was like, okay, I have two choices now. I either make some sacrifices and add one more thing to my full plate and make my life a little bit harder than it already is and more busier than it already is, which it was pretty hard and busy enough. But the alternative to that was don't add one more thing to my plate. Don't be consistent. Just keep doing what I'm doing. 2 or 3 years go by and I'm still in the same place as I was on day one. And to me, that was a lot scarier. It was a lot scarier to be in the same place 2 or 3 years from now, working for someone else, having someone telling me when to show up, what to do, and when I could leave. That to me was a lot scarier than adding one more thing to my plate and making some sacrifices, like no TV. I stopped watching TV for like a year. I caught a few Syracuse basketball games, but I cut out even some of them. I stopped playing all the adult leagues. I sacrificed sleep. I made some sacrifices. but I did it for the long term because I knew it was inevitable that if I did those things, it was inevitable that I would have success, and then I would have a lot more freedom to do the other things. Once you have like that unwavering belief, and you know it's 100% inevitable as long as you stay on the escalator long enough, consistency doesn't even become an issue anymore. I know I say that all the time. The key to the success is consistency. But once you have that like powerful why that's fueling you every day, and you have that belief that the things you're doing every day are inevitably going to get you to that why, you really don't even have to try to be consistent. You just will be. So that when people ask me about the time management thing and they're struggling with consistency, I always go back to, is your why strong enough? And do you honestly believe that if you just stayed consistent with the vital behaviors, it's inevitable that you'll find those 2 or 3 gold chips that are going to help you turn that why into a reality? And then once they have those beliefs, the time management really, they figure it out. But if you have more questions on like specific time management stuff, I think Amy's a lot better than that than I am. But for me, it was like I wasn't going to get off the escalator. And I think the biggest sacrifices were TV, a little bit of sleep. What about you, Amy? What would you add to the time management thing? But Sarah, does that help?
Yeah, it really does. I mean, I have the heart and I have like the, I'll never give up. I love Team Boom. I love the people and the relationships. It's just like, I feel like I'm at the point where I can just be a hobby coach or become a career coach. And I need
What's your why?
I mean, out of all that, that's probably what I struggle with the most. It's changed a lot because my most recent why is becoming a woman that my daughter would aspire to be able to be independent, even though I'm securely taken care of, by my husband. So I just want her to realize that, I worked hard for her and for us and provided them with stuff, but it's changed a lot. I don't have like one super strong thing. I think that's always been.
What I would tell you is like create a why list. Like if you don't have like one thing, have a list of things that if you stayed consistent for the full year, that you'd be able to achieve. Like, so the second part of it, like the first part's having that strong, powerful why. The second part is, do you believe it's inevitable that if you stayed consistent with the daily vital behaviors, that it's inevitable that you'll find those gold chips that are going to actually turn that why into reality? Do you believe that part of it?
100%. I believe that from day one.
Good. Okay, good. So that's usually the harder part. And you got that down, which is you're ahead of the game. Now I think you're struggling with finding a clear enough, strong enough why that's going to make you consistent on the days you don't feel like doing stuff. And
I agree with that.
Maybe that could start with just a why list and having a list somewhere that you're going to see it every day. So that it's like something you're focusing on daily, instead of just once in a while when someone asks you what your why is.
Thanks. I'm gonna cry, but that was awesome.
It's got you. Whenever someone says they're struggling with time management or consistency, I always go back to those two things. It's got to start with, there's something missing with those two things. Because once you have those two, the why and the belief that it's inevitable, it's going to happen as long as you stay consistent, then you make the time, and you are consistent. Those things just happen. It's those other things that need to happen first, though.
Thank you.
Got it. All right. What else? What other doubts are bouncing around?
I have one of my new coaches. We were doing a Zoom call the other day, and she said right now she's struggling with coming across salesy. And we talked about it and discussed it. So I was just kind of wondering what your advice to her would be about I don't know, coming across salesy, but trying not to.
So like for me, if you look at my posts, I never like post or message people and say like, hey, here's a new program or like a new group. If you want to do it, here's my link to my website or anything like that. It's more like, I'm doing this. Do you want to do this together? I've always done that. I never like have tried to sell anyone or told someone to do something that I wasn't asking them to do with me. And then I never feel like I'm selling when I do that. You know what I mean? That's the first thing I would say. The other thing I would say is the more you use the products, the more your belief and confidence builds with the products, the less you feel like you're selling, and the more you feel like you're sharing something that's changed your life. And you can't help but share it with other people. You know what I mean? That just comes with using the products for a long period of time. And that confidence belief will happen over time. Those would be the two things I would talk to her about.
Thank you.
Got it. Cool. What other doubts are bouncing around? There's a lot, right? Come on. You can just say one of your coaches has this doubt. You don't have to admit it's your own.
I always get, from a lot of my coaches, I constantly get the thing that we were talking about with time and time management. For myself being, I have a 2 and a 4-year-old, and then I work full time as a teacher. I'm a mom. I cook dinner every night. I have to clean my house. And I constantly get, I'm not saying like, oh, look at me, I have good time management or whatever, but I try to explain to them that sometimes I don't have a power hour. I have power minutes. I probably did at least 100 invites today, but if I had to sit down and do them, I tell my coaches, if I had to literally sit down and say, I have everything done, now I'm going to invite, it would never happen. I mean, seriously, never happen. So I randomly do 5 invites, then I do 10. I'm, waiting to pick up my kids, there's 10. I'm getting out of the shower, there's 10 before I get out of bed. And then I'll do even some of the steps where just following up. I don't wait and get trapped in those conversations with people. Sometimes I even make sure they're not active right now, which sounds crazy because I don't have time to talk to them. And I'll just send to people like, step 2, just want to follow up with you. Step 3. And then as much as I can to keep moving forward. And I try to explain that to my coaches, and I constantly get, and I know a lot of my coaches are on here, so don't take it as a negative thing. But a lot of times you just have to, you have to have that strong why, like Pat said, you have to power through. You have to have that, even if you just, keep going, even if it's small baby steps. And with the time management, like you were talking about, just even if it's little minutes, it may not be an hour, maybe it's 10 minutes, maybe it's 10 minutes here and there. That's the best thing that I can say to do. And I try to explain that to my coaches because I think people don't have enough time. They get overwhelmed and then they just quit. So if you can find even 10, 15 minutes here and there, eventually you put that together and you'll start creating hours, which will start, building time. So.
Right. And I think those coaches that quit, it's like sad because I think they quit on something they didn't really realize what they were quitting on. They either didn't have a big enough why, they were too afraid to think that big, or they actually did think that big and they thought it was really cool, but they didn't really believe that it was possible, and they probably didn't believe it was possible because they didn't realize how that happens. Nobody had really sat down with them and said that the freedom or whatever their why is comes from just finding a couple good gold chips. And yeah, you got to go through thousands of people to find them, but in the end it's worth it. And you're helping people every step of the way, which is cool. But nobody kind of sat down with them and said, this is kind of how you're going to get there. The gold chips, the challenge groups, going back to the vital behaviors. So they never knew how those vital behaviors tied into their why. So that's what I'm if I wish I could go back to some of the coaches that I never talked to them about that. I never talked to them about their why and help them create a why that was going to fuel them every day. And I never talked to them about how that why was actually going to be a reality and help them believe that was 100% inevitable, that if they just did these vital behaviors every day, that it was inevitable that they would actually create that freedom or whatever their why was. So that's what I would say to you guys is when you talk to your coaches, ask them those 3 things. Number 1, what's your why? And then help them dig and create a why list if they do. Number 2, ask them do you believe that why is going to become a reality if you find 2 or 3 rock stars, those 2 or 3 gold chips with the characteristics we all talked about at the beginning of the call, right? And then ask them, do you believe it's 110% inevitable that if you're consistent long enough, you're going to find those 2 or 3 find/develop those 2 or 3 gold chips.
I have a question for you, Pat. How do you, what would you suggest for coaches to get their downline coaches more involved in training groups?
I would do exactly what I just said. I would start there. You know, like
Same
they're
thing.
not going to get involved with training groups and add anything else to their plate if they don't have a why. Or they don't believe that getting into the training groups is going to help them, or they don't believe that the vital behaviors are going to help them achieve that why. They got to have that why, and they got to believe that the things you're asking them to do are actually going to help them get there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like talk about that mindset, you know, ask them where they are on that spectrum of like, do they think this is an amazing opportunity that they hope works, or do they know this is an amazing opportunity that they know is inevitably going to work? You know, and then tell them like one of the best ways that they're going to be able to go from here to here is surrounding themselves with people that are already here. And those people are in those monthly accountability groups.
Hey, Pat.
Yeah.
This thing real quick.
Yeah.
I just want to say, I don't know if there's any coach on here.
I think you're covering your mic.
You hear me now?
A little bit better.
Better? I don't know if there's any coaches on here who are feeling discouraged or feel like they want to quit. About 5 months ago, I was about to quit. I literally had the form filled out to quit because I couldn't figure out why all these coaches were doing so well and I wasn't. I felt like they were super special. And I realized at the Team Boom retreat that if you just plug in and you do the 3 vital behaviors, you'll be successful over time. It's not going to happen right away. So if you're feeling discouraged and you're like, I'm doing these vital behaviors every day, but maybe you've only been doing them for a month, like just keep going along because it will happen eventually. Not that I'm like super successful now, but I'm a hell of a lot more successful than I was 5 months ago.
Yeah. Awesome. It clicks. It's funny, like you see people once that like attitude clicks from like, I hope this works to like, it's inevitable. I know it's going to work because I'm never going to quit. Then their attitude changes, their actions change, the results change. But it starts with that attitude. And to answer Marie's question, I think the best way to help people get into those groups is showing them that that attitude is.
Drops are.
Oops. Did I just disconnect? Anyone else? What other doubts? What other doubts do you guys have that like you think or your coaches have that you're not really sure how to like respond to?
So I have a question. I don't know if it's necessarily a doubt, but
Obstacle doubt question.
Coaches in your downline who aren't really doing anything. They don't respond when you message them. I try to reach out to them and I don't know what to do anymore. I don't know if I should just stop or continue. Sometimes I order through their profiles so that they stay active. And I feel like
talking right now. I'm on like this Jeopardy video. There's like so many people. Who's talking right now? Sorry.
I was. Is that what was coming through?
Yeah. Sorry, I can't see who that is though. I can only
It's
hear
Caitlin.
Who?
Caitlin.
Oh. Hey, sorry. For people that so what I would do is like you have that belief, right? Like you believe that it's inevitable you're going to find and develop 2 or 3 gold chips that are going to create that why for you, right?
Yes. Everything in me says I should just let them go. If they're not into it, they're not into it. But I know that for months, people kept me active by ordering through my profile because it helped them. And now look at me. I decided to get back into it, but I wouldn't have if I wasn't active or had quit.
Right.
Yeah, Michelle, I see guilty, yes.
Yes. So what I would say is I think that if you're like constantly like doing that with your coaches and dragging them along, they're going to get the idea that in order for them to be successful, they're going to have to drag people along and it's going to turn them off. But if you just go on and you're successful without them and they kind of start to get left behind, that fear of missing out, that is a better motivator.
Okay.
So
would it be bad? Like I need 2 more coaches. I'm trying to get to Diamond. Would it be bad for me to continue to keep a coach active to reach Diamond rank? Should I not do that?
No comment. No, I don't know. I don't know. Should ask my mom that. She's better at that shady stuff. I'm only kidding. I don't know. Yeah, we can talk about that. But as far as like trying to motivate those people to actually get into the business and like become like a gold ship, I think the best way to like motivate someone, and what did it for me, was when I kept falling off the escalator and kept going back to the bottom, I kept seeing other coaches get on the escalator and stay on it long enough to get to the top. And I kept seeing coaches doing it over and over, and it just pissed me off. And I was like, if they can do it, so can I. So that's what motivated me. And I think that if someone had tried to like continue to like drag me up the escalator, I would have been like, this is not what I want to do. I don't want to be dragging people up an escalator for my career, you know?
Okay. I got to stop dragging them then.
And like, have that attitude of, you're going to be successful. It's inevitable. You're going to find people that want to do this with you. You don't have to like drag people along. It's just going to exhaust you. So like, have that attitude.
It's not about the, sorry, I was going to say, it's not about the quantity, it's the quality.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it goes back to like what Lindsay Caterino said. 98% of her income is from two rock stars, and my income's not much different. So, yeah, I mean, and then I think when people come into this business and they see that you have an attitude of like, hey, I'm desperate for coaches, I'm going to drag anyone along that I can. They come in with that attitude, and they don't take it serious. When you have the attitude of like, hey, I'm going to be successful. I want you to come with me and be successful with me because I care about you and I want to help you. But if not, I'm going to be successful without you, not in a bad way. But I think if people know that you're going to be successful with or without them and you're not desperate for them, they come in with a much different mindset. They come in more serious to put in the work.
I think I just feel guilty when they fail.
Coaches of mine have quit a lot, too many to count, and I did the same thing
You
with
can lead the horse to the water.
What's that?
They say that you can lead the horse to the well, but you can't make them drink the water.
I think it was lead a horse to water. You were breaking up there, but yeah.
Sorry. You can help themselves. They don't want it themselves. You can't help them be successful. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. I mean.
Yeah, you can lead a horse to water. Well,
I think I caught you. But yeah, that's how I would do it. That's how I would motivate the coaches that have fallen off. And then what I do is like, I build one of their legs for them. Like if they're just sitting there and they're not doing anything, I'm constantly putting coaches below them and helping those coaches have success. And then I reach out to them and I say, hey, I got something really cool I want to show you if you have time to do a Zoom call. And then I do a Zoom call with them and I make them go into their graphical genealogy. I have them share their screen and I say, hey, you see all these coaches over here? Everything that they buy and sell is eventually going to benefit you. You have like this entire team of coaches that you didn't even know was there that I'm helping you build, that I'm creating this side for you. It's waiting for you. All you got to do is just get that first gold chip on the other side to benefit from all the stuff I've been building on the other side. That tends to like get people back in the game. So again, like I don't spend my time on them. I go on and move on and try to have success with other coaches. And at the same time, I'm building one of their legs for that coach. And maybe they come back around eventually. It's honestly what got me to come back around.
I got a quick question, kind of a general question, but can you just talk real quick about why you think it's so important for the personal development? Because, I knew it was a vital behavior from the beginning, but honestly, when I first started and for my first couple months, I always thought it was kind of silly and I didn't really get it. And it wasn't until I started doing it every day that I started seeing a big difference in myself and my business. Could you just talk about it real quick? Because that was something that I think I was lacking when I first started.
Yeah. There's books that are going to help you like create a stronger belief in yourself, and there's going to be books that are going to help you create a strong belief in the fact that this business model is amazing, the best business model ever created as far as I'm concerned. So like we always talk about, you got to have a strong why, you know, and then the second part is you got to believe that the things you're doing every day are going to get you there. So in order for you to believe that the things that you're doing every day are going to get you there, number one, you have to believe in the business model. And number two, you got to believe in yourself. And so the two books I would say that have had the biggest impact on me would be what helped me believe in the fact that this business model is amazing, and that if I can just help 2 or 3 gold ships, then I'm going to create that type of that why. That was the 45-second presentation. That book totally made me believe that it was inevitable that I was going to be successful with this business by reading the 45-second presentation. And then I also thought that success was only for people that had like amazing skills or knew a lot of people or this or that. Did my screen just freeze? Can you guys hear me? Can you guys hear me or not?
Well, I'm just listening live.
Annie?